My mother-in-law chose my husband's ex over our family for years. Now she wants access to our kids. Would you say yes? This story gets wild. Hit subscribe because this is just the beginning.
AITAH for not allowing my mother-in-law to have a relationship with my children after she kept my husband's ex around for years, even after we got together. I, 33F, and my husband Tom, 35M, have been no contact with most of his family for 3 years. Within those 3 years, I've had twin boys, which has made my mother-in-law try to get back in contact with me. There's a lot of history, but here's a brief summary of why Tom and I are no contact, and it all revolves around Tom's ex, who we'll call Talia. So, I'm Indian American, and Tom is white. He comes from a pretty traditional family and grew up in a small town. Talia was my mother-in-law's best friend's daughter, and they were the small-town romance everybody envied. However, upon meeting in college, Tom and I just clicked on a platonic level, and to be honest, I didn't even have feelings for Tom until 4 dates in. I guess you could say he had an emotional affair, but he never did anything physically romantic until he broke up with Talia. Talia, of course, remained in contact with his family since she had been, according to my mother-in-law, the daughter she always wanted. Keep in mind, Tom has a sister. But Talia is more of a homemaker, while my sister-in-law, who is an absolute angel, and I have always been more career-focused. Talia had been at every holiday, family gathering, and get-together since the very start of the relationship, and at first, I paid it no mind. I was civil to Talia because my mother-in-law made it clear Talia mattered to her, despite Talia's blatant distaste for and disrespectful attitude toward me. That changed at my weddings. We had two, and my parents footed the bill for both. The dress code was simple. Aside from the obvious no white/wedding party colors rule, nobody was supposed to wear red. I am well aware that red means you slept with the groom, but more importantly, red is a bridal color in my culture. I wore a red lehenga and sari to my Indian wedding, to which she wore an eggshell, off-white dress. Keep in mind, white is worn at funerals to represent purity in my culture. That got my aunties and cousins talking, but I still had a blast since I really didn't care. I did care when she showed up to the American ceremony in a floor-length, apple red gown with a slit going up the leg. It was a bridesmaid's dress, and it violated the dress code. My sister-in-law, along with Tom, went to tell her to change. She did leave after having a hushed argument and came back in a tea-length green gown. I assume she just wanted to see if she could get away with it. Apparently, my auntie saw this too, which meant Talia was subjected to stares, whispers, and backhanded giggle fits throughout my whole American wedding. It made Talia feel embarrassed, and she cried to my mother-in-law, who came to me and told me to keep my kind in line. To this, I crossed my arms and told her that maybe Talia should have stayed in her lane, that she knew not to wear red for multiple, but mostly cultural, reasons, and it wasn't my fault my family was shaming her. It isn't my fault she became cannon fodder for my gossiping gaggle of a family. Yes, I said those words, since that is what my aunties are. Those were the consequences of her actions. Tom and my sister-in-law backed me up, and my mother-in-law left with Talia before dessert. The next day, there was a social media post from Talia, crying about how she was exiled from her best friend's wedding because the bride was jealous. I made a post back, telling her that she wore red, knowing how inappropriate it was. How her best friend is her ex, and to not sugarcoat what she did. I then tagged my mother-in-law in a separate post with screenshots of Talia's post and told her this was the last straw, and that I had been disrespected by Talia from the very beginning of my relationship. Now that I was her daughter-in-law, she needed to keep Talia away from family events and holidays since she doesn't respect my husband and me. I didn't care if they still went on weekly shopping sprees or spa days, just keep her away from Christmas and BBQs. Talia removed her post after being publicly called out. My mother-in-law was good on this compromise until 3 years ago, after Talia came to Thanksgiving with a pie and a plastered smile. A Thanksgiving that I was hosting. She said something along the lines of, "My mother-in-law invited me and I wanted to make sure she can actually eat something, since I know you tend to cook ethnic food." I slammed the door in her face, went over to my mother-in-law, and told her she could leave with Talia, who I had just slammed the door on. Tom looked at his mom, who had this deer in the headlights look. She tried to sputter excuses, and my father-in-law tried to defend her, but Tom stood firm. He said they had lost access to him, and any extension of him, since they chose Talia. My in-laws, aside from my sister-in-law, left, and we haven't spoken since. Fast forward to last week, I got a text from an unknown number, and it was my mother-in-law. She said she saw a picture of my boys from a mutual friend's post and wanted to reconcile. She said she'd keep Talia away this time, and that ever since she got cut off, she's been in minimal contact with Talia anyway. Her Facebook begs to differ. I told her as much, saying I knew bullcrap when I smelled it, and she made her choice. I told Tom about it and asked if he missed his family. He shrugged, saying he doesn't care, and it's been relieving not having his mom around. He's the youngest son of 3, so he was always the baby boy. But I have since received texts from my brothers-in-law, their wives, and my father-in-law begging for a second chance. She'd always wanted to be a grandma, and I do feel like I'm robbing her of a chance. Her other sons haven't had children yet, and my sister-in-law cut her off when we did. But you can't undo nearly a decade of disrespect with wishes and wants. And Talia is still in the picture, so I'm skeptical about how long that promise will last. I feel like I'm being callous, but there are so many stories I can tell about Talia's disregard for Tom's boundaries and mine. And I don't want to welcome a storm into my house by opening up the gates. Am I the jerk for telling my mother-in-law she made her choice after she kept my husband's ex around? Top/relevant comments. Commenter. The moment she referred to your family as your kind is the moment you should have never spoken to her again. This woman has been outwardly racist towards you, and you don't think that she won't make your children insecure about their race. Ops response. Tom actually snipped that talk in the bud post-wedding when I told him everything. He told her he would call her out if she ever spoke like that about my family again. I attended every gathering after my wedding, and my sister-in-law and Tom acted as watchdogs. My mother-in-law did attempt to joke about smelly Indians at a church potluck. I had brought butter chicken since I knew it was easier for their palates. Tom said something like, "My wife smells great, can't say the same about you. No amount of perfume can get rid of all those cigarettes." My mother-in-law kindly stepped off from that point on. I know racism doesn't go away. I just know if my kids ever did pick up something from her, Tom wouldn't be afraid to shut her up. Commenter 2. Your mother-in-law made her choice, said she changed, but you see she hasn't on Facebook, so she doesn't deserve another chance. There is no endless chances clause, no auto-forgive clause, or the right to be included for anyone, even family. If you don't behave, you don't get to be included. When you get the chance, tell your mother-in-law she can be grandma to Talia's kids. Ops response. You're actually right. Talia made cryptic posts about my mother-in-law being a bonus Grammy when she eventually moved on. This was on a Mother's Day post midway into Tom's and my relationship. Like, the flags were waving in my face, but I sucked it up back then since I didn't want to make waves. Kinda regret it, but kinda don't, since it showed my character versus hers. I legit wanted to make it work. Commenter 3. The best part of the story is how Tom is standing by you all the way and seems relieved to not deal with his mom's bull. The worst part is the daughter she always wanted when she has an actual daughter. Your mother-in-law is a serious jerk. Do you really want her in your kids' lives, for the brief period while she behaves, and then try to explain what happened to grandma when you have to shut her out again? Ops response. Good point, and yes, Tom and my sister-in-law are godsends. She's an amazing aunt and spoils my boys rotten. And so does my family. I don't need my mother-in-law in my life. I just felt, as a mom, that being robbed of being a grandma would hurt. My confidence took a plummet postpartum, so I tend to overthink now. Update 8 days later. Okay, so, first off, thanks to everybody who supported me on my first post. I just wanted to clarify a few things, since I was in hysterics when I wrote the original post and worded some things weirdly. First off, Tom didn't cheat on me. The timeline goes as follows. Tom and Talia were originally forced to hang out since childhood and Talia developed a crush. The two got together in 7th grade. Tom left for college and met me. We hung out, just platonically, and had stuff in common, more than he had with Talia. He went home and broke things off with her, then asked me out the following week. It took 4 dates before I actually started to view him as a serious potential partner. See, no overlap of relationships, no affair, no reason for all those comments saying I was a jerk for being the other woman. Also, thanks to the people who defended me against those comments. And before anybody says, "You're being awfully defensive, you must have cheated," I'm defensive because I view adultery as a crime nobody can come back from. In my culture, adultery is very common. I believe studies showed 55% of married Indians have committed it, and so it is a sensitive subject. Also to clarify, Talia is the one who wore the white dress to the Indian wedding and attempted to wear the red dress to the American wedding. I know a few people were confused about that too. So, the update? We have remained no contact with my mother-in-law. After receiving a few more messages from that number, Tom and I formulated a reply that was along the lines of this. Dear mother-in-law, you have repeatedly shown you don't care about Tom's and my feelings regarding multiple things. I'm sorry if our relationship broke apart the fantasy you had of Talia being your daughter-in-law, but the fact is, it was never going to happen. Talia has been a constant thorn in our relationship. Both you and she have been passive-aggressive, rude, oblivious, and snide in your remarks and actions toward us. You said you would refuse to come to the weddings if Talia was not invited, which you knew would make Tom look bad to my elders, who, unlike you, have since accepted him as one of our own. You allowed Talia to berate me, comment about me, joke about me, and if I ever tried to joke back, you would say, "That's not nice, she was just joking." Funny how the jokes were always one way in that house. You made it very clear that Talia is the daughter you always wanted, which is why my sister-in-law cut contact when we did. The only reason your sons stay is because they know if they leave, then you'll die with no kids to mourn you, since you nitpick their wives now that I am no longer around to be the scapegoat. I have screenshots of everything between you and Talia, including mocking and threatening texts from both of you. If you try to come after me for grandparents' rights, I will get my attorney, and I will make sure you keep your racist self away from my family. With all due respect, please leave us alone. You were fine not talking to us before we had kids. Maybe Talia can finally move on and give you grandkids. Sincerely, the Op family. I then blocked their numbers and set all my socials to private. Tom did as well, and we have talked to family about going private and unfriending people who may have ties to my mother-in-law or Talia. Things have been quiet since then. I know Talia has seen the post, since she screenshotted it and sent it to Tom via one of those apps you can use to get a spare number. He sent a few laughing emojis before telling her he knew about the post and then blocking her. Tom has always had my back like this. Even when Talia was in the picture, he and my sister-in-law would do little things to show we were a united front. I know a lot of people gave Tom flack in the last post for not standing up for me, but keeping my mother-in-law in check was like a circus act, and my aunties are gossips to their cores. Once, during a family barbecue, Talia spilled cola on my sundress and Tom accidentally poured his water over her head while talking to my sister-in-law as they walked past. It was like a Cold War, and as of right now, we finally seem to be winning. I got a message saying that Talia coming to my weddings was comparable to Camilla going to Diana and Charles' wedding, and now that I look back at it, it kind of was. Only, Talia will always be the ex, Lamau. Top/relevant comments. Commenter. Having read your prior post, I honestly think that the response you formulated with your husband needed to come from him alone. Not because you don't have every right to speak up, but he needs to do a hell of a lot more to defend you. Hindsight is a thing, but why on earth he didn't step up and nip all of this in the bud ages ago is beyond me. Also, I'm genuinely curious here, so no malice meant at all, but why is wearing white not okay to an Indian wedding? Obviously, I know it's a faux pas here, but I didn't know it was a thing in your culture? Op's response. It's not that it's not okay, each bride is allowed to wear whatever colors they want. However, we stated no white and no red. White is typically worn at funerals in Indian culture, so I personally view wearing white, and all its off shades, as someone wishing death to the relationship. That's just a personal superstition. Also, Tom has defended me. He and his sister always put up a united front because Talia was deeply ingrained into the family dynamic. My mother-in-law is one of those church ladies, and Talia is also highly involved with the church, so every nook and cranny had a bit of Talia. It wasn't possible to totally cut her off, since at that point in time, we wanted to keep his family in his life. We just had to prove I wasn't leaving. Now, we don't care, so no more mother-in-law drama. Commenter 2. I'm so glad that you don't have to be nice to Talia or your mother-in-law anymore. But I think you are counting your chickens before they've hatched. If Talia is really ingrained in your mother-in-law's church and is spending all her free time with her, who is undoubtedly telling her to just wait for you and your husband to fall out, then she's never going to meet someone else. Your mother-in-law has total control over this woman. It's scary. You are doing exactly what you should be doing. Stay as far away from both of them as possible. And make sure you have CCTV cameras on your home. Op's response. We got cameras not long before the boys were born since our neighbor's car got vandalized. We have them all around the house and inside. So, needless to say, I understand the sentiment. I don't plan to ever have contact with my mother-in-law or Talia again.